today. How are you? Are you well? Are you enjoying the weather? Hope it's a nice day today. It's a bit up and down at the moment, isn't it? You never know if it's going to be sunny and warm or if it's going to be cloudy or rainy, all over the place. I hope today is a lovely day. So, I have two older brothers. How about you? Any of you out there got older brothers or sisters? Yeah, oh, lots of you, lots and lots of you. Okay. How many of you, I wonder, ever get frustrated by being the youngest? Okay, quite a few of you get frustrated by that. I used to get really frustrated by that because sometimes it seemed so unfair. Because there would be times when my brothers, they'd get to play out later than I could because they were older than me. They'd get to stay up later than I did. Well, I was the youngest. I had to go to bed earliest. They got to go to the park and play with their mates without any adults before I was allowed to do that because I was the youngest. Any of you have that sort of frustration? Lots of you. In fact, you know what? Thinking about it, you probably don't even need to have older brothers or sisters to have that kind of frustration, do you? How many of you feel that sometimes life's just not fair in the way that it treats you because you're young? Yeah, I thought as much. It seems to happen all the time, doesn't it? You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do the other because you're too young. It can feel so annoying. I feel your frustration because I had it a lot when I was your age. There's a story in the Bible that is actually one of my favourite stories because it kind of takes that idea and flips it a little bit on its head. So this story, it's from probably about 3,000 years ago. So we're going back in time a bit here. About 3,000 years ago. And the people of God were living in a land of their own. And God had loads of things that he wanted to tell them. You know, stuff like how to be happy and how to treat each other properly, look after one another, how to protect themselves from their enemies, lots and lots of things. And so God decided that he would choose someone to talk for him, someone that he could talk to and tell them everything that he wanted the people to know. And then this person would tell all the people what it was that God wanted them to know. A prophet. So God searched the entire land of Israel. He searched really hard. He looked here, he looked there, because he was absolutely dead set that he was going to get the right person. Okay, that was important. And he found just the person he was looking for. In a small village called Shiloh, in the house of a man called Eli. Eli, the priest. But it wasn't Eli the priest that God chose as his prophet. It wasn't Eli the priest that God chose to talk to. It was somebody else. Let's take ourselves to the house of Eli, okay? In your imaginations now, you're going back 3,000 years into the house of Eli. It's night time, and Samuel was going to bed. Samuel was a boy, a young boy, same age as some of you. And he lived in the same house as Eli because he was Eli's helper. And so he would help Eli with some of the jobs that Eli did as a priest at the temple. He would get things ready for Eli, and he'd help Eli around the house a bit as well because Eli was an old man by now and he needed a bit of extra help with some things. So Samuel helped with all of that stuff. Now, this particular evening, are you still there with me? Back in Eli's house, nighttime, Samuel goes to bed. It's all tucked up, ready for sleep. It had been a long day. He was tired. And before you knew it, he was fast asleep, dreaming away. Samuel's very pleasant dream was disturbed. Samuel, he heard a voice calling him. It didn't really sound like Eli, but there was only the two of them there. So who else could it possibly be? It must be Eli. Not overly thrilled at having been woken up when he was so tired and still yawning and stretching, Samuel got out of bed and made his way to Eli's room. "Yes, Eli," he said, fumbling a little bit in the darkness because Eli had also gone to bed. "How can I help you?" Well, Eli was also asleep and not particularly thrilled at having been woken up by Samuel. "Oh, what?" he said as he woke up. What, how can you help me?" he said. "Well, you can help me by not coming and waking me up when I'm asleep. What do you think you're doing, Samuel? Coming in here? I go back to bed. Go and help me by going back to bed. Let me sleep and you get some sleep. Otherwise, you'll be in no fit state to help me tomorrow." "But I heard you call me," said Samuel. "Nope. No, you didn't," said Eli. "I did not call you. Go back to bed, child." Samuel took himself back off to bed, climbed in, pulled his covers over him and fell back to sleep, back to his very lovely dream. Samuel. There was that voice again, waking him up again. Samuel sighed. He said it wasn't him, but there's definitely somebody calling me. So Samuel dragged himself out of bed a second time and took himself off to Eli's room for the second time and went into Eli's room and said, "Yes, Eli, how can I help you? You called me." And for the second time, Eli woke up and was a little grumpier this time. "I did not call you," he said. "I don't know what this nonsense is, but it's not funny, it's not big, it's not clever. Go back to bed, Samuel." Well, Samuel took himself off to bed, feeling really disgruntled now. Why was Eli doing this? Letting him go to bed, letting him get to sleep, calling him, and then saying that he wasn't? What was going on? Samuel went back to bed, tossed and turned a little bit because he was a bit more disgruntled this time, not quite as asleep as he had been. He'd woken up a bit more, but he still managed to fall back to sleep. And it felt like he'd been asleep for no time at all when a third time he was woken up by this voice calling him Samuel. So perhaps a little bit more insistent this time. "Samuel!" Samuel woke up. Look, his eyes had yawned. Got out of bed. Went to Eli's room. Flung the door open. "Eli, you do keep calling me. I fall asleep and I am woken up by you calling me. You're calling my name. I don't know why you keep saying it's not you, but how can I help you? What do you need?" Eli, by this point, third time, had a bit of an idea. And he said to Samuel, "It's not me. I'm not calling you, but I think I might have an idea who is. So what you need to do, go back to your room, go back to bed, and if this voice calls you for a fourth time, then don't come back to me, because it isn't me. It's not me. Don't come back to my room. I think that it might be God who's talking to you. So if you hear somebody calling your name again, this time say, yes, God, what can I do? I'm listening. Tell me. Well, Samuel didn't really know what to make of this information. God was talking to him. But Eli was the priest. Samuel, he was just a boy. He wasn't anybody important. He just helped Eli do stuff. Eli was the important one. Eli was the man. Eli was the priest. Eli was the one that, did all the priest stuff. He was just a boy. Eli could see all this confusion on Samuel's face, and so he just gently encouraged him back to bed. I think partly because he probably wanted to go back to sleep himself. Back to your room, Samuel, said Eli. Back to your room. And remember, if you hear the voice again, just say, yes, God. What is it? I'm listening. Samuel went back to his room. He got back into bed. And this time, he was really nervous. Was God really talking to him? Really? There was no way he was going to get back to sleep this time. I mean, if what Eli said was true, God talking to him, it's just a boy. No, get out of it. He sat in his bed, hugging his knees. This was exciting. And as he was there, for a fourth time, the voice came. Samuel. Samuel. Samuel took a deep breath. Yes, God, he said. What is it that you want? I'm listening. And God spoke to Samuel, the young boy. God spoke to Samuel. And from that night on, right up until Samuel was a really old man himself, even older maybe than Eli had been, God continued to speak to Samuel and give him messages for Samuel to then give to the people. But God knew right from that first night that he was looking that Samuel was who he needed. Samuel, the boy. Didn't matter to God that he was only young. God could see the value in Samuel. So, next time you're feeling frustrated, perhaps because you think, it's not fair, I'm the youngest, I can't get to do that, all the older ones get to do more than I can, it's not fair, I hate being the youngest. Maybe next time you're tempted with those sort of feelings, just stop and remember that story of Samuel. And even though it might feel sometimes that not everybody thinks you're very important because you're young, the Bible says that God thinks you're really important, even though you're young. I love that story. I love the story. And do you know what? There's loads more stories in the Bible as well of how God shows just how important he thinks children are, just how valued children are to him. And I think that's awesome. I'm going to pray to finish. So if you'd like to join in with me, if you'd like this prayer to be yours as well, then please feel free to say Amen at the end. Dear God, thank you that you love every single one of us. Thank you that in the Bible there are loads of stories that show how much you value children. Help us older people, us grown-ups, to remember how much you value children, and help us to treat them as the important people that they are. And God, I pray that all the children who are hearing this story will know how much you love them. Amen. So, important people, go and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.